Our guest for this hour is the Cabinet Secretary for ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs, the Honorable Joe Mucheru. Good morning, Bona CS.
Good morning.
Good to have you in the Situation Room.
I'm happy to be here. In fact, I've been looking forward to experiencing these studios. I think you've done a great job in terms of the revamp and bringing now all the technologies together, radio, TV, social media. So really happy to be here and to immerse myself in, I don't know whether it's triple play or what you call it, but having all that.
It's a multicast.
Yeah.
We are live on SpiceFM. We are also live streaming the show on YouTube and Facebook, and we are live on KTN Home. This is what the CS is referring to. He's a CS in charge of ICT broadcasting. He gets it. He's playing you. Bona CS,
Yes.
thank you very much for joining us. You have been a busy man. We've been waiting to have this conversation with you. When it comes to issues of ICT, innovation, you're not just those people who you can say, okay, this one is tokenism who's landed here. I mean, you've been in this sector of ICT for very many years. You among the people who actually started internet service providers in this country. With Wananchi, you have worked for Google, and now you are in the ministry. So we know that you know what we are going to ask you.
Okay.
We're going to talk about.
It depends.
We're going to talk about data management and the state of data management in this country. So let me just give a background to this. We have had very many instances where we interact with government, and government is asking us for information, or various government, different departments of government asking for your information, critical information. You are applying for an ID, they want your information. You are applying for a passport, they're getting a biometric information. We have the start and stop Huduma registration asking for biometric information. Right now, we have IEBC registering voters asking for biometric information. KRA is asking for your PIN and telling your bank if this person does not have your PIN, you should not give information. So there's a lot of information that I'm giving everywhere across the country to various people, and the government ought to protect that information. That's the background of the conversation that we want to have today.
Right.
Now, tell us about the Data Commissioner's Office as we start the conversation, and what of the importance of having a data commissioner.
Let me add that you're also giving your information to social media sites when you're creating the accounts, sites that are not even within the country. So this is not just government that is asking for information, but also private businesses.
Even Google has all my data.
That are outside, and data includes, like the maps. They will tell you where you went 2 years ago, where you were last night. All these things that sometimes people don't want publicized.
Yeah.
So you're getting all that information. So one of the things we wanted to do, and the president was very keen on this, is to, everybody is asking for information, especially government. How can we centralize and say, we have a central Msema Kweli for your biometric data, so that if you need a passport, if you need a driving license, whatever you need, it's all going to be under one platform. Mm-hmm. And that is what the Huduma number was, a social security number. And that's what we are building. Yes, we're going through all these legal processes, but I believe in the end, that is where you're going to have your Msema Kweli. And because that is what we're doing, the first thing people were saying, but how can you ensure that our data is secure? Mm-hmm. And, they went even to court to say that, you must. And one of the requirements was that we must have a data protection law. We had been going through a process of getting both the privacy and data protection, as well as access to information laws put together. But through Parliament, they were separated. So now we have a data protection act or law that is in place. We also have a data commissioner that is in place, almost a year old now in office. And they have really, the purpose is to protect your privacy, protect your data. Where data is going and the amount of data that is being collected and how it can be used. People can even steal your identity, all these things. We must have a regulator to make sure that data, that your own personal data is protected. And that's the role of the Data Commissioner's Office.
There are those who have argued that with the introduction of an instrument like the Huduma number, right, what you've then done is gone and given the government even more power than it already has over your life. Because one, they have all your information at their fingertips, and it is something they can use adversely if they choose to.
I think that, I think it's propaganda, because your birth certificate, the government has given you. Your ID is from the government. Your passport is from the government. Your marriage registration is government. Even your school results, all these things is government. Which data is this that the government is now getting that we didn't have? All we are saying is this data is becoming very important. Let us centralize it. So today, NTSA wants your biometric data, NHIF wants your biometric data, IBC wants your biometric.
Everybody wants your biometric
Why should
data.
we as taxpayers pay 10 times for collecting the same data? So that every institution is collecting this data, they're then securing it in vaults, they're doing all. So we're paying so much for as many institutions there. Why can't we just pay once in one central place and it's there?
Can you maybe
Why must somebody, you have to fly from so far to come and deal with NHIF?
Yeah.
You go back to Turkana, now you want your driver's license, you fly back or you drive back.
Sure.
You're going to NTSA.
I think it makes sense in some cases when we don't understand something. Maybe that's around when this supposed propaganda that you talk about then comes into play. So, what is the idea behind this? How much easier would it be to have all of this data in the same place? What are some of the things, 1, 2, 3, that you would be able to do as a Kenyan operating in this country seamlessly, as government seamlessly, cost effectively, if you had all of this data in one place, which is what this is purporting to do?
It's not purporting, it is doing.
It's going to do.
The idea is this. So you've been born. Why must it be that when you're 18 and you need an ID, you have to look for government?
You have to apply.
You go find your chief, you go do all these things in order for you to get an ID. We know you're now 18. You should automatically get your
In fact, I went
ID.
through school and I got a KCPE certificate
have
from
a-
government,
Yes.
KCAC certificate from government, and then the government.
Even a birth certificate.
I have to prove to the government that I'm a Kenyan to get an ID.
Why is that? And that's why I'm saying with the Huduma number, from when you're born, you have your number. And with that number, you can go open a bank account. You can go even get your mobile phone number. So I'm talking even in the private sector, not just within government. You have your information where you're going to hospital. So if you happen to be, say, from the coast region, and now you're in Nyanza and you're sick, they have to start asking who are you, where, all these details. But if you have one unique number, they can actually be able to service you wherever you are and even send your data back to whichever county you're from. So it makes life very easy for you as a citizen, because you can apply for your passport at the comfort of your home. You don't have to go and give biometrics again, because you give. So you want your passport, you want your driver's license, whatever, you apply. We have about 300 plus services now on eCitizen. And the ones where you have to physically go is because you're being required to go give fingerprints.
Right.
Even if we already know who you are, you can get your even certificate of good conduct online, because you're just putting in your Huduma number, and it makes life a lot easier. So this is not a card for the government. It is your data, it is your service, and that is the one that you will use to be able to access government services, to access even private sector services, and do it knowing that it is you. Nobody is going to use your ID and fake and say it's you, because it's biometric. And so the data protection is why we have, so that people don't now misuse this card. They don't misuse your data. We know that it is you, and how institutions use your data and information must be according to the way they are licensed by the Data Commissioner's Office. And if they go out of that, they are fined and so on. So that's protecting. But I hope I've answered the more than the 3 areas and created the efficiency. And it's not new. This is something the US, the Europe, people have had.
In fact,
I don't know
last
why
year-
they're making it sound like Kenya is the only place we're starting this.
Last year, Bonas CS, sitting right where you're seated today, was the president of Estonia. And she was telling us about her country, where it
Right.
is about 90% digitized,
Yes.
with all this information that is held by the government. And she took us through. I mean, it's a journey that just took less than 12 years
Right.
to get to where they are. But they also worked closely with the citizens understanding what the government is doing, and they used the private sector to roll it out. Private sector was very, very much involved because the private sector also understood, and it's a place where people are interacting with private sector on a daily basis. Why aren't those lessons being applied, or are they being applied?
They have-
by
they have
Kenya?
been applied.
So, for example, using the private sector to explain to people, okay, this is what's happening, or even using better communication from government to explain why this is happening. Not if you don't have Huduma number by February.
Where?
I think again, it depends on what is reported, and it depends on who is fighting. There are people. I think I'll give an example, and I'm sure there will be no major consequences because this is known. When we did the biometric registration of the police service, His Excellency announced we found how many? 5,000 fake police officers. Okay?
Ghost cops.
Ghost cops.
Okay.
Oh, it's not that they were
CT
not.
thought that there were individuals who were posing as
No, oh, no.
Because
Why you
I
can't
had
just-
fake. I said higher.
I'll admit my first task that the president gave me when I joined government was to give all our students in Standard 1 laptops. So we went out and I was given the number 1.32 million students required these tablets. When we finished issuing, because now we were physically issuing, it was 960,000.
So some 400,000
400,000
were floating somewhere.
ghost students.
Children.
Yes. That capitation was being paid for.
good grief.
Now, those people that are getting that money, and by the way, you multiply that by 8 streams,
Yeah.
you think they've been sitting down ignoring and saying it's okay, bring in this Huduma number. Of course, they want to stop what we're doing because it's creating a lot of transparency and openness to ensure that Kenyans don't lose their taxpayers' money. So corruption fights back. So even though you've not had any business complain that we're introducing Huduma number, if you talk to the mobile operators who I engage with all the time, they're saying, please bring this thing quickly because it's going to help us in this registration of SIMs. Otherwise, right now, every operator pays for all this registration, it delays and so on. Banks are saying we want just a centralized identification place so that if you've taken a loan or if you've opened an account, they can be able to verify who you are. So they're all asking us. Desperately, they want this Huduma number. But you can see who are these people that don't want us to progress, don't want us to have this openness and transparency because, there's things that are going on that should not. And
Probably-
technology is taking this thing away.
The other question maybe, CS, would be, why roll out a whole new system when you already have the information? You already have all this information and data about people. You have it as voters. You have it as those who have applied for passports. You have it for those who have applied for DL. You have this information from NHIF, from NSSF. Why did you have to now go to the State Department for Coordination of National Government to roll out a whole new program about registration of persons?
I think one, it is not new. If you remember when, I think you are with me. When we were getting our IDs, it was not biometric. The fingerprints was a photograph.
Yes.
It wasn't actually taken electronically. So we need the electronic fingerprint. That's one. Two, you're maybe Eric Latif here, but if we go to NHIF, you're Latif Eric or something else, and if you go to other places, it's not easy that we can tell who you are across all these networks, across all these different institutions. So it is better we create Msema Kweli, one central master database. Because today, maybe on your driving license, you have an extra name that is not in NHIF. And you'll find, some of the records even in NHIF, some young boys were giving birth because again of the corruption that exists. So can we not ensure we do it once and make sure the data we have is solid, is clean, and then everybody can use that? That is the reason.
I hear you, Bonasias, and in terms of communication, I think that's a vital component of all of this. We go back to the campaign, for example, when we're looking at changing of the currency,
Right.
and it was every living, breathing moment we heard, this is why we are doing this, this is what it's for, this is how important it is. Nobody can say they didn't know about it, and they almost knew at the very end that, all right, we're done. If I have shillings from the old course in my possession on this date, I'm not going to be able to use them, right? Do you think the communication could have been upped a little bit more? Because as you explain it here, it's beautiful. And you can say, okay, I see this. I can see it.
And it definitely isn't the way it was explained.
And this is not the way it was heard.
No.
The first thing that Kenyans heard, and you heard was
Deadline.
No, you had
you heard you're going to take and be able
which
to
was not
control
even from
Kenyans
us.
from some satellite up here and be able to figure out how you move with this Huduma number. But here you are saying something almost totally different.
No, it is.
In the way that Kenyans understood it, or
No,
the message that they heard was something totally different.
In fact,
but
let me
here
just
this makes sense.
let me just
Yeah.
turn the blade. The Ministry of Information, which is in charge of communication,
Yes.
failed on this one.
I think that is not true. What happened is, like now for Central Bank, who was saying that the money is going to be evil, the money you're going to get, the new notes, who was giving, there wasn't this huge
There wasn't
competing pushback. In the case of the Huduma number, the first thing people are saying is that government wants to use this for rigging. Government wants your DNA
To control
so that
you.
they can control you. Government doesn't have it became a sponsored communication. But if you remember, we even went out with all the different players. Even the handshake partner came. We launched this Huduma number with him. I was with him in Mombasa, in Likoni. The whole country, we really communicated. But what came out was the news that this thing is evil, this thing is what. And I can tell you it was sponsored.
Actually, buenos dias.
Yeah.
You see, you understand what was going on.
Right?
You clearly, even from your explanation, understand the import and the benefits of, say, the Huduma number. You do.
Yes.
And the activities you were involved in, from where you sit, was communication. What we're trying to tell you, it was inadequate.
I'm hearing.
Yes.
But I'm also telling you there was more communication than my communication or
Yes,
government's communication.
Yes, and we're also saying even that one was still inadequate. And the reason why we're saying it, we're saying there is a satisfaction that sometimes government has with the communication they have, because from their point of view, they've communicated adequately. And we're saying that usually isn't the threshold. What you understand and what the public ought to understand, and for them to understand what you understand, it doesn't just require effort as in stating it. No, it requires, you see, what you've just done today. I don't have a Huduma number because I felt somebody was ordering me to go and get it. I said, "Ati what?" No, I said, no, that one, let's wait and see. But if I'd heard what you're saying, I would have queued immediately.
But let me tell you, 37 million Kenyans did.
Yes, they did.
37 million Kenyans did. So that's not a failure, because it's more than 70-80% of the population. But we want 100%. We don't want any Kenyan left behind. So I take it. Yes, we could have communicated more. We could have communicated better. But I can tell you, the process we're going through, even going through the court process, I am very happy with that process, because it means we're going to make sure that nobody will come and use this data wrongly. We may want to really protect Kenyans with the data now, but what we know will happen 5 years, 10 years, we want laws that are going to really ensure our data is protected. You don't wake up one of these days, you find you've got loans that you are not aware of.
Right,
Somebody used your biometric data, they got loans, and now
I'm being auctioned.
You're being auctioned, and you're saying, prove it. And they're telling you here.
Yeah.
and
Is this not you?
That is why now the data protection is very critical. You don't want someone to come and change your title deed.
Yes.
And transfer it and so on. So those are the things that we want to make sure are protected. And I'm glad that internationally, Friday is the International Privacy Day. And we want to make sure we're celebrating that, because we have even a data.
You know, the sitting where I'm now sitting, and even when I'm not sitting in, I'm sitting elsewhere, what is becoming apparent is my understanding of how government ministries or government works and how it actually works is actually completely different. And from what I'm hearing, there are hurdles and issues that people who have the mandate to carry out certain duties, say as CSs, there are things that they confront on a daily basis that we don't get to hear and we don't get to know. All we see is they have failed, they have not succeeded, they are not doing well, and yet that may not necessarily be the case.
Sirikali. Yeah.
The question then comes, is it in the government's interest to try and explain to the citizenry and get them to understand how exactly it functions?
It is. I think civic education, people understand. First of all, even the terminology government, as in people say that's the government. And sometimes they refer to all manner of things, whether it's the executive, whether it's judiciary, whether it's, legislature. They just call all of us government, county, and so on. Even just that basic understanding, so that you know what are the responsibilities, who's supposed to do what, all that is important. And then, you're able to. So I think, yes, a lot of work needs to be done to educate citizens. And I think what you have seen, especially during this reign of His Excellency the President, he has opened up a lot. He's allowed us to say, some of the things I'm saying here, without his sanction, I think I would be fired. Because seriously, why would you say...
What are you saying?
There are these problems. You're supposed to be, as government, to say mambo iko sawa, but the president has said you tell citizens the truth, be open, be transparent, so that they understand what these challenges are.
Right.
So I think over time, if we continue to have these conversations, if people continue to see the openness and interactions we're having, it will become easier and people will understand the government better. Openness on tenders, openness on legislation. The Constitution says you must have this public participation. All that is opening government a lot more.
Sure. And now we're looking at a time when we talk about challenges and responsibility in terms of them being open and transparent as government.
Right.
We're in an interesting period now because we're going into an election where a lot of data, a lot of information is central and critical to the process.
Right.
And so Kenyans also may not have an intimate knowledge and understanding of just how this ministry specifically plays a role in this control and management of this data as concerns the electoral process. How does this exactly work? And what would you want, how are we going to be able to
let's call it this protection versus control.
Okay.
Because the control of the data is with you, the individual. So you may give data, Huduma number is optional. You chose not to have it, nothing has happened to you. It is optional.
Okay. That I'm sitting very close to you and talking.
Yes.
That's evidence that nothing has happened.
So you have the option as a citizen to decide what it is that you want to do. So our role is to make sure, one, and through the Data Commissioner's Office, who has your data. Where is your data? What are they doing with your data? And if they have kept it for longer than they should, can they delete it? Can they remove it? So, for instance, a CRB may have your data saying that you've defaulted on a loan. But when you've paid, shouldn't they clear it and show that you're clean now? If they don't, then there's a place you can go to and they will actually be dealt with so that is resolved. There was earlier last year, people came out making a lot of noise. This political party, I've just found out and I'm not in that political party and so on.
Exactly.
The political party's registrar has, through eCitizen and through their portal, now you can go there and actually check what is the status, which party are you in, and if it is not your choice, you can ask to be removed.
In fact,
but the registrar will not remove you until they have first gone to the party. No, you'll do it on eCitizen, but it's the party that will be required to remove you. And if they don't within a certain period of time, then the registrar will take action and remove you. All these are areas where we've come in and created enhancement. In the previous years, how did you even know which party you are in? You just had this party had this number of people. You didn't know whether you're there, and you didn't even know whether you can actually go and complain or intervene. Now you can. Go clean the database. So right now, via eCitizen, Any citizen can go and make sure that their data is correct. And they can even delete and say they don't want to be in any political party. All that is now open. So the control is with the citizen and not with the government. We're giving you the tools to ensure that your privacy, to ensure that you know who's using your data. You don't go into a building, the watchman asks you for your details, they put in the system. Before you are outside the building, you are receiving SMSs, buy this, do this. As in, they've already sambazared your data to other people. You want to be able to know that when you leave that building, within 48 hours, your data is deleted because they don't need it, or whatever time the data commissioner is actually going to give.
The question, though, Wanasias, is, as you're talking about protection of all these data, when you wake up one morning and you find a certain government website has been hacked, and then next week will be another one that has been hacked, and you're trying to access the e-citizen, and this time you are not able to. That's where the jitters come in. When it was hacked, did the hackers acquire my information? Is there a space between where the information is, where the servers are, and where the hackers can access?
You see, that is exactly the question we were being asked by all the people that were saying, why are you collecting our biometric data and putting it in a central place? And so the data commissioner's role and responsibility is to license and approve anybody that is controlling or handling data. They'll all come and they have obligations to be able to show, first of all, how are they storing the data? How are they communicating with you on what they're doing with your data? Are they taking this data overseas, or is that data only available here? All that regulation is what the Office of the Data Commissioner is actually going to be doing. And the regulations are already in place. You've got the general regulations that say how this data is collected, how it's managed, and so on. You've got the controllers and processors regulation also. And then the processes of licensing. So you've got these regulations that hopefully within February, they will come into force. And then within 6 months, everybody will be required to be compliant. So by around July, the compliance, because you have to give people time. They can't suddenly, wake up and lock up. But those regulations are going to be in place, and you will have someone you can go and report to and say, now I can't access e-citizen. And the e-citizen people will have to answer to her. They'll have to answer to the data commissioner as to why either they were hacked, how they're going to reveal what happened to the data, and so on. And that's why as government, we want to make sure we're prepared. Put the data in one central place and protect it.
Where are the servers?
They're in Kenya.
Controlled 100% by Kenya, not some tender that we have signed that expires in 3 years.
Government. Kenya, they're in Kenya and by government. The president showed us. We went to Manyani. You saw the young people. We have some of the most talented.
Oh yeah, there's something that the president once did when he went to.
Because people kept saying that it's Germans and all that, so he went to introduce the Germans in Manyani, so that you can see. And he took people out there. You see the army of young people, tech people, who are innovative, coming up with amazing things. We can be able to secure our country and our data. We are not backward. We don't have to go out. So for things that are ours, we keep that data to us. Even the intellectual property, we're telling people, let us protect this and keep it to ourselves. So don't worry. There are no Germans or others, and I'm really not against Germans. I'm just saying that was what those people, naysayers, were saying, that are protecting our data. It is here in Kenya.
Yep.
We don't give you the exact location, but it is very secure and protected.
Hiyo ni serikali.
Hiyo ni serikali pia.
You talked about openness and transparency, and the president has been, championing this. Yes, I actually recall when the president said we need to have a system where all government tenders are visible to everybody.
Right.
Who wins the tender, who supplies, who completes, who gets paid. It's been very many months, Bonasias.
It was launched.
What was launched?
Tenders.go.ke.
Yes, where tenders are advertised.
So these tenders tend to be advertised on the Treasury website or in the different websites. But you will go there and see what were the tenders, who was involved in bidding, who won, and even details of what was the committee that decided. So that is now being managed under the National Treasury. But that system and platform was launched. Unfortunately, what happened is at the time it was now being put into effect, there was that lifestyle audit, or everybody, the procurement people had been asked to step aside for audits and so on. So there was a delay in the process, and I need to check how far they have now gone into inputting the data. But actually the process and system was actually implemented.
We've discussed this before on the show, and I've actually even been on the tenders.go.ke looking to see, so this particular tenders, for example, CT and I have a company and we look. And so looking for who has qualified and who has won tenders. We just see the numbers. And I think, in fact, John has actually put it on the screen. We can see the number of tenders, the number of contracts in per department, per ministry.
If you click on the tenders, it should give you more details. It's not just... There are the details.
Okay.
And then you can click.
Supply and delivery. So John, continue clicking because we're here.
So the data is there.
People just need to feel that
And it's open.
what we're talking about is
I love this. I love that we can do all this on radio.
Yes.
Well done. Yeah.
This is what happens. So you are able to go to tenders.go.ke and you can open and get all the information.
Correct.
Including who is actual a supplier, who has won a tender, and the process of
And then
of winning
in the
those
back
tenders.
there, the people that actually gave that tender, the ones that approved, even that information is there. Obviously, because of protection, which is one of our
of their
rules.
information.
You can't put their names
Yeah.
because then people will start looking for them and so on, which again we don't want. But the information is there, which means if you feel aggrieved that a tender has been awarded to somebody else and not you, and there were reasons, you have the information.
And you can see.
Before, it was all
was
blank.
opaque.
You could not get it. So the president has really pushed for this openness. And I think Kenyans one day will really see this is part of the biggest legacy. Not just the expressway and all this other infrastructure you see, but even in terms of access to information, in terms of empowerment of citizens, so that they can be able to really know what's happening. Who is this that was given a tender to build our road? And you see, this is cascading now even to the counties and so on. It's a start. And I expect that, within the next few years, this will become standard. You'll be receiving a tender document showing the road near your place has been awarded to so-and-so. If you have a question,
And these are the
all those
timelines and these are the
improvements.
budgets.
Yes.
About access to information then, there are still very many people who complain about access to information. It's, in fact, there's even a case in court with the Okoa Mombasa campaign.
Right.
We've been saying we want to get the details of the SGR contracts, and we'd like to know what exactly the details of that contract are. But still, unable to get it.
So how do you answer? The government itself, just like yourself, there are contracts that you sign that say this is confidential, this is national security. There are all those levels. And even in the access to information law, there are all those requirements. So for instance, if, and this is hypothetical, I have not seen that contract, but if we were given a better deal than another country, and China doesn't want that country to know, and then we go and we publicize it everywhere, then nobody will ever give us any information. Because then even us, we can't keep secrets as a country.
What did we do to get a better deal? Maybe that's the detail that we want
so,
to know.
So I'm not saying that that's the case.
We
I'm
know,
just
it's
saying
hypothetical.
that those could be the reasons why Kenya has agreed with China or whoever it is that some of these things should be kept secret. Now, I don't think this is an area or an issue that has been under my ministry that I'm required to explain.
But access to information, though. But
No,
principally, when it comes to information,
it was
Bwana
put
CS,
under the commission of the CAJ. CAJ are the people who run
the
that.
ombudsman.
Yes, they're the ones who run that act.
Yeah.
It was removed from my ministry. People took it away from me. So they're the ones that are running it. My job is to go report on whether government has complied or not. And nothing else. I don't have budgets. I don't have the people. Nothing. Everything was given to CAJ. So, so I don't believe I'm the one who should really be answering.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, if you don't keep secrets...
on principle, Bwana CS,
that's why I answered.
And the reason I'm
yeah.
asking this is even let's look at the presidential task force on power bills.
Yes.
And the task force reported that there's some information that they were not able to get from Kenya Power
Right.
Because they were told, these contracts we cannot give you. I mean, on principle, this is a presidential task force. It's doing public service, looking at how best we can ensure that there is affordable power in the country.
Right.
But it's not able to get contracts that have been entered into by a private company with some private companies. Does that serve public interest?
So you're right in what you're asking. But I think we must make sure we follow the law and we obey the law, because that is what will sustain our country. You know, if you're a person who keeps on telling everybody all your secrets, you'll find you'll have no friends. You'll find no one wants to do business with you. You know what I mean? So again, we have to balance, and I think that's the current challenge we have. And some places we have to keep secrets. And you know, the president can go and collect that data. It's not, he has instruments to go and pick the data, but he obeys the law.
Sure, but unfortunately, the image that it casts then on government again is that there's something that
on government or Kenya Power.
Well, okay,
You see, this is that whole.
Look, the image that it casts is that there is something being hidden, and that there would be individuals wherever they are who are benefactors of this. And if that information is not being made to the public, the first thought is that there's something untoward happening. That perhaps the country could have paid less. That the country then probably would have been indebted at a lower rate. But that there is more that's being gotten, but that more is in the hands and pockets of a few. You speculate because there's a vacuum. There's a vacuum, so you speculate.
And they're real and true. I think what you're saying probably has happened. And some of those things have happened. The beauty of the country and our constitution is that we can now go amend or change the law to make sure that the law provides for those things. So we don't break the law because we believe that this is what we must do. Let's protect our integrity. We want investors in Kenya. We want people to lend us money. We want all manner of things to happen as a country. But if we're seen to be a place where you cannot be trusted with information, you cannot be trusted to follow an agreement, a contract that you signed, then we might find ourselves even in worse positions. So I agree with you that we need to create that transparency, but let's make sure that no one signs contracts that have this kind of clauses. Let's change the law where we say that everything must be public.
There's a term I came across, Bona CS, blockchain.
Yes.
This reading has its benefits.
Right.
So now, when we talk about Huduma number, I'm still on that Huduma number.
Yes.
And some of, because of what it is.
Yes.
Can we apply blockchain to this idea and the reality of the Huduma number?
The Huduma number is on blockchain.
It is.
It was implemented on blockchain.
Okay.
And it is secure, it's immutable. Once you're born, you cannot delete whether that person was born in the country or not. It's fact and it's for life. You don't want places where people will be able to amend and change. So the way it is being done and the way we are calling it Huduma number, the Msema Kweli, is because all records will be there. The fact that you're born will be recorded. If anything changes, you change your name, you change your marital status, you change your academic qualifications, whatever it is that you're changing, it is recorded and the history can be clearly seen. You can't suddenly wake up and you are given an ID and you have no history of even birth, which is what has been happening. I mean, people are issued with passports and they don't even have IDs because you've got all these different systems operating. You want that, we know that this car and this asset belong to you. And therefore, it's very easy to do an audit. If you've inherited land, it is clear where it came from, who had it. There are people who are now billionaires with no history as to how they got all these assets.
Yes.
Don't ask who, but I am sure you know. There's no history. This is the problem. Some of these people are fighting because they don't want that history to be recorded, because you will ask, how did you jump from a position, this position you keep talking about, and suddenly you have all these.
Okay.
It's agriculture. I mean, I'm involved. I have interest in agriculture. I know CT. But I said, let's close the conversation on
Right.
a note on the upcoming general election.
Yes.
You are involved in the committee that is looking at how to coordinate government, national government, and also county government. IEBC walked out. Maybe
Actually,
we
it's
can
all
talk
the
about
players.
all the players
Yeah.
that are looking at preparation for the next general election.
Correct.
There's a lot of information that is needed in terms of awareness creation, and then in terms of also protecting data. What can you tell us about the working so far of the committee?
So the first thing is, the judiciary, the executive, the legislature, IEBC, everybody, we serve one citizenry. It's not that there is people that are just for the judiciary, then there's people for IEBC, it's all one. And because we want to make sure this is a smooth election and that there are no queries, we were coming together and we came together to say, what do you need? So Chebukati has been writing, or the IBC has been writing to us saying, please help us coordinate with the mobile operators because we need the network. We need, to be able to transmit results. They've been doing the same with Interior, saying they want security and police and so on. So there are a lot of things that are required where we coordinate. But we can sit down and say, these are the things we need. These are the polling stations where they will be. So we can map and say, here is the connectivity. Here is the security. We map and provide all that. But we don't tell IBC who to send there, how to do whatever it is. They are going to be independent in performing and, taking the election through their own normal process. We don't tell the judiciary how they are going to rule on any case. All that is independent. They don't tell me how we are going to provide connectivity, but we agree that the connectivity is here. I would say so far it has gone actually extremely well. Everybody has said this is what we require. The areas of duplication, as you know, we came from COVID. We want to make sure budgets are well organized, so there's no duplication in terms of requests and so on. That has gone well. And whether IBC has worked out or not, for us, we've made sure everybody has the information they need. We've provided what is required. Now they can come and tell us what they will need. Nobody is trying to tell them, rule this way or do... it's their mandate. It's in the Constitution.
So the door is still open for the IEBC.
And in February, the whole committee is supposed to now stand down and let everybody go and do their work. This was actually coordinated. Can you imagine you're holding an election for the whole country and there has been no planning or coordination amongst ourselves? Security doesn't know where the network is. So let's say the roads people come and they are cutting the fiber. And all this has to be coordinated and managed. And that's all we are trying to do. And I don't know, as I said before, there's these groups that try and create other stories because they have other agendas. And you've learned about government a bit today. So ni hawa wanaleta hizo shida.
So yes, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
We want to say a very good morning to you. And as you head out there, we want to invite you again in coming days. Come and talk to us a little bit more on the innovation and youth affairs. There's very many questions that we have on youth affairs as well, and as innovation.
I'll come. We talk about even NFTs and all the great opportunities. There are some really nice things that will grow people also. Now we talk about policy, and the things that we are doing. But how do we take advantage of the digital economy? Tutaongea hiyo.
Asante.